Hello Captains, hope you're having a wonderful day out there. Today's video is a little bit of a special video for my subscribers and people who have commented and left me messages that you would like to hear my opinions on Star Trek Discovery and the fact that Patrick Stewart, Captain Picard, may be coming back to Star Trek. And so that's what this video today is about. This is an opinion piece. These are my thoughts and my opinions. You may agree with me, you may disagree with me, but I believe we can all still get along as Star Trek fans. So, first of all, I am winging this video. I have nothing written down in front of me. I am just simply saying all this off the top of my head, and hopefully I will remember everything to say, and hopefully this will be a short video, maybe not too long, although maybe at the end of it, after I get done with all the talking points, I will take this ship, which is the USS Discovery in Star Trek Online. This is the Discovery starship. It is actually a very pretty powerful and versatile starship in this game, Star Trek Online. Maybe I'll take it into combat and show you what it looks like in combat in this game, since this is the ship and show in question today. And a lot of people call this the pizza cutter ship. Yes, it is a pizza cutter. There is no doubt about that. Okay, so before we begin though, and I'll just leave you on a nice little image here of Earth space dock in the background, and Earth and the sun and our ship. So before I begin, I just want to tell you a little bit about my Star Trek history, because you need to understand how much of a fan I am and how much I have been involved in Star Trek from a very early age, my entire life. So I will begin with that in my early days. Back in the 80s, I am an 80s child. Back in the 80s, I stayed home after school with a friend. His father was a Star Trek fan. He had on VHS at the time, I guess this was probably the late 80s, he had on VHS at the time all of TOS, the original series, recorded. So every single episode, all of them on VHS. It was a huge collection. He was very proud of it, and rightly so. He also had all of the original series movies, of course. All the ones from the 70s, and I'm not sure if he had The Undiscovered Country yet, or if I watched that later on myself. I forget, exactly when things exactly happened. But I digress. So after school, I would come home. I would watch episodes of the original series. And so I watched every single one in order as a kid. And that is what got me into Star Trek. I loved it. Was a fan from the beginning. So right there in my very early years, I was a fan of Star Trek. And I started with the original series. So right from the beginning, I got to enjoy it. Okay? Then I watched all the movies, of course, and then The Undiscovered Country, which came out sometime in the mid-'80s, 86, I think, sometime around there. I'm not sure if I saw it in the theater, or probably not, because I would have been too young. I probably saw it after the fact, after it had been out of the theaters or something. And then I followed The Next Generation. Now, The Next Generation was my Star Trek. The Next Generation was Star Trek that I could follow on TV as a kid growing up. It was my generation of Trek. So that's what I grew up with in my later, more preteen years, was The Next Generation. And so I was really into that. I mean, that was my Star Trek, okay? So, huge fan. During that period of time, I got to go to a Star Trek convention for the first time, one where Deanna Troi was there. She was doing a panel, and I got to see that, which was just amazing. And I picked up some merchandise. I got a communicator to put on my shirt. It was a lot of fun. Okay, then Deep Space Nine rolls around, and by this time my mother is now into Star Trek as well. We sit down on the couch right at the premiere of DS9 on TV and watch it from the beginning. And we see every episode on TV, and she was into it and I was into it, of course, and we watched that. And that was a lot of fun. Now, of course, the first couple of seasons were a little slow, but then it picks up with the Dominion storyline and really gets good. Deep Space Nine, great. Then comes Voyager. And again, by this time, I'm even older now, and I can take in more. I can understand more. I can get involved more. And by this time, definitely had internet access. Even though it was just dial-up, I was able to get online and participate in forums and message boards and discuss the episode and the show with other people, which really made it more fun. Now, I am one that loves Voyager. There are fans and people out there that dislike Voyager. There is a dislike for Voyager out there. I do not understand it, and I am not one of those people. I love Voyager. I need to make that clear. I love Voyager. Voyager is a series that I can just pick out any episode, any random episode, anytime I'm bored, and just watch it and be happy. I put Voyager up there with TNG for me. The Next Generation and Voyager are at the same level at the top for me personally. Okay? So then, of course, after Voyager, some time passes, and we learn that they're going to make a new series called Enterprise. Now, at the time, it wasn't even called Star Trek Enterprise. No, for the first season, it was just called Enterprise. They were going to try to do something a little different here, to break away from the norm. Sound familiar? A little bit. And that's what they did. They called it Enterprise, and instead of the orchestral kind of music that we would get at the beginning of every other series, now it's like laid back pop music. Very different, very controversial series, a very polarizing series at the time. This really was. This was a polarizing series, Enterprise, and eventually they did figure out some of their mistakes, and they did add the name Star Trek to it, and now it is Star Trek Enterprise. They realized that mistake, and at least they made that change. Now, I really enjoyed Star Trek Enterprise for the first couple of seasons. It was like an exploration show. It was actually really good in the way we met the Klingons, and I really kind of enjoyed the first couple of seasons. Then we got into the Xindi arc, and it got weird. It was just drawn on too long, and it got too weird, and then all of a sudden we are fighting space Nazi vampires. No joke. Space Nazi vampires from the future. So it got a little weird, okay? But then a great thing happened in the last season of Enterprise. Manny Cotto came on board, or took over somehow. I forgot exactly what his role was, his title was called, but he was able to change the direction of the show. And he made the last season great. He started showing us what Enterprise could have been this whole time. And we got great episodes that explained the whole augmentation Klingon thing, the whole why Klingons look different in the original series with no ridges, and then they had ridges later on. They explained that with the augmentation storyline, and it made sense. Then they did things like the In a Mirror Darkly, the Mirror Universe episodes, where we got to see the Defiant, the 23rd Century Constitution Defiant. Absolutely incredible. And then other missions too, where they're starting to build the formation, the precursors to the Federation. Amazing stuff. Unfortunately, it was just done too late. The big wigs in the network had already sealed the fate for the show, and they had it planned to be canceled from the beginning of that season already. So it just really only got that season and did not have another chance. Unfortunately, it was one of those things where like they had already decided ahead of time, we're just going to cancel this thing. Even if season 4 does well, we're going to cancel this thing. And that's what they did. Unfortunately, if it had gotten another season, I think it really would have redeemed itself and could have been one of the greats. It could have had 7 seasons like DS9 and TNG. It really could have. So I believe it was cut a little short, but it finally got good at the end. So anyways, that show was still polarizing. It was a polarizing show, but I'm still a fan. I watch it, and at that time, I'm a part of Trek BBS, which is a forum, and we would have these live commentary threads. So as the episode, new episode aired, everyone in that time zone would go in and talk live as the episode is happening, about what you're seeing on screen and what's going on. A lot of fun. Then we had these huge review threads where we would review the episode and talk about it, and it was just a whole bunch of fun to have everybody engaged in it. And a lot of people were engaged in it. Even if you didn't like it so much, Star Trek fans still watched it. While it was a polarizing show, because it changed a lot of things. It did. It changed a lot of things we weren't used to. But fans still watched it and talked about it. Like a lot of talking about it. Like a lot of people were still watching it. And that is where Discovery differs. Discovery is even more polarizing than Enterprise was. I mean, I thought Enterprise was polarizing, but no. Discovery is on a whole new level of polarization, as it were. It is even more so polarizing today, but the problem with Discovery, which wasn't so much a problem with Enterprise, is that there doesn't seem to be a lot of people watching it and talking about it. Here on YouTube, they've released the official trailers. They did the season 1 trailer for season 1 back then, and now they've done, the season 2 trailer. You don't see a lot of reactors reacting to it. Even those that do just general TV reactions, they ignore Discovery. You wonder why? Because it just isn't as popular. People aren't watching it. People aren't talking about it. It's not being talked about. Enterprise, even though it was polarizing, was talked about. Discovery, it just isn't the case. So, let's get into Star Trek Discovery. I needed to tell you all of that history because I have been a fan of Star Trek since the beginning, since I was in my single digits, okay? My entire life I've been a Star Trek fan. It is my thing. I am not into Star Wars. I am into Star Trek. I'm a Trekkie. That's where I live. I live in that zone. I play this game. This game here, Star Trek Online, that you see in front of you, came out in 2009, was it? Yeah, it came out in 2009 when the rebooted Star Trek movie came out. And I've been playing it for 8 years now, 8 years, and it has the most videos on my channel are of this game. So that tells you something. I'm a fan, so don't ever think I'm not a fan, because I surely am. And that means that I can come at Discovery and be critical of it. I have the experience, I have the time, the knowledge, the passion for Star Trek to form my own educated opinions of Discovery. So that should tell you where I'm coming from. Okay? So now let's get into Discovery. I did watch all of season 1 of Discovery, and I had always planned to, even though it did give me pause at first, questioning many things about the show. I still watched every episode. I watched the premiere episode because they put the premiere episode on Prime TV, on non-CBS All Access. They actually put the first episode on TV, and I was right there on TV watching it for the premiere, and I watched every single episode of the first season, so I am familiar with what has happened for the entire series. And so I have that experience to draw from. So, how do I want to start this? I don't hate Discovery. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. But I also don't love Discovery. It's also not the best thing I've seen, okay? And we almost have to separate Discovery from Star Trek a little bit. Because let's say you remove the Star Trek out of Discovery. You just remove the Star Trek name, you remove Starfleet, you remove the logo, you remove everything from it. It's a good sci-fi show. It's grounded, it's realistic, it's real world, and it's scientific. Those are all the qualities, by the way, that do make up Star Trek. And for that, this show fits in perfect. I like shows like that, like Babylon 5, for example, very real world. You could see that being our future. And I can see that in this version of Star Trek Discovery. I can see that. This could be our future. It's grounded. It's good sci-fi. Good sci-fi. But that's just it. It's just good sci-fi. Once you attach the Star Trek name to it and all of that, you bring in this huge franchise behind it. And it has a connotation that just doesn't make sense with what we see on screen. Star Trek Discovery is so far removed from anything we've seen in any other previous series of Star Trek. It is so far removed. It makes it seem alien to us. It's alien to its own franchise. That's not a good thing. It's not a good thing to be alien to your own franchise. Now, there are several aspects that make it that way. One are the visuals, and of course, one is the storylines, and then your actual goals of the series. You know, the whole main plot and points of the series, and your writing and direction and all that. So let's talk about the visuals. First of all, I completely understand that in 2018 you are going to be able to do a lot better with cinematography and lighting and graphics and set design and just absolutely everything compared to 1960. No doubt about that. I mean, everything in filmmaking has changed a lot over that time period. No doubt about that. I get that visuals change. Visuals are updated. But I believe, it is my belief, that you can maintain the aesthetic of a show even from the 60s, the TOS, the original series, Star Trek. You can retain that aesthetic and yet update it to modern times. And there's proof and examples of this already done. We need to only look back to the Enterprise 2 or 3-parter, whatever it was, In a Mirror Darkly. Go watch those episodes, In a Mirror Darkly and the next one after that. Go watch that. They took the 23rd century Defiant, which is a Constitution-class starship, same as the Enterprise, that is in this time period or era of Star Trek Discovery. They took that and modernized it with early 2000s filming technology. Obviously, this was, that episode came out in the early 2000s. So they were able to update the visuals, but keep the same aesthetic, and that's what they did. Go watch that, and you'll see that the bridge layout is the same. The colors are the same, and basically what they did is to just make the lighting better, and just doing that alone using modern lighting techniques made the ship look more dramatic. And the displays were updated. Instead of having like hand-drawn pictures as the displays, they used real displays with 3D graphics on them. That's how you update something old and make it look new, yet still keep the same aesthetic. You take that and you apply modern technologies to it, like changing out all the displays so that they are real computer consoles, changing out the view screen so that it's a real view screen, changing out the controls so that they just look more realistic but yet are still the same kind of controls. And you keep the layout the same. You don't change the layout of the bridge. You don't change the color scheme. You don't change any of that. You keep it the same, but you light it different. You light it with modern technology, and it updates it. It gives it a modern feel, yet the same aesthetic from the original series. That proves to me and shows me that they can do that. They can do that. What has happened with Discovery is they have chosen not to do that. They have gone the opposite direction and chosen to change everything to something we've never seen before. And that is where the problem lies visually. They have destroyed or erased the 60s era original Star Trek aesthetic and instead replaced it with something totally different. The look is totally different. When you do that, you have now alienated yourself from that time period, from that era. Even though they jam down our throats that this is the prime timeline, well, it doesn't look like it's the prime timeline to me. It looks like an alternate universe timeline where they're a little more advanced at that time period. And that's what everybody sees when they watch this show. It's like they're too advanced for that time period. And then you bring in the whole thing like the holographic communication they have, which they never showed at all until Deep Space Nine. You know, you do things like that and change things and retcon things. You know, it's okay. Here's the thing. It's okay to retcon a few things. You can retcon or change canon in a few things, okay? But when you retcon or change canon in everything, then it's a completely different show. I mean, it just is. And it feels that way. It feels like a completely different show. For example, go watch Deep Space Nine, go watch TNG, go watch Voyager, and then come back and watch Star Trek Discovery. It does not feel like it fits in that universe. It fits somewhere else. Somewhere I don't know where, but it fits somewhere else. When you watch back-to-back the other series and then watch this one, it just doesn't fit. And then, especially when you watch the original series, it's out of left field. They're two different shows. They're two different things happening. If they had kept the aesthetic from the original series, but yet updated it with a modern filming techniques and lighting and display, all that stuff, they could have succeeded in bringing that era of Star Trek to life with modern technology. It is possible, but they chose not to do it. They chose to change everything. Even the uniforms. I mean, what is up with those Discovery uniforms? Nothing like what we've seen. Everything is different. And then they've retconned in technology that is foreign to us. Not to mention the big one, the spore drive. Never have we heard about this spore drive. Never has it. I mean, this is a brand new thing they created for this TV show, and it does not fit with anything at all. Here's what they should have done instead of the spore drive, and this I would have been okay with. They should have made it an experimental transwarp drive. Because by this time, remember, in one of the later TOS movies, Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, they have the, I forgot the name of the ship, but it's an Excelsior class ship, and it has an experimental transwarp drive on it. So what if the Discovery had been the precursor to that? Because we're only talking like, what, 10, 15, 20, I guess maybe 15 or 20 years before that. So what if the Discovery had been the precursor to that? What if the Discovery had been the alpha version of that ship that had an experimental transwarp drive, and they were trying to experiment with that, and then all those same shenanigans could still have happened in the series that happened here. Them going to the mirror universe could still have happened with the transwarp drive. Like, what if it malfunctioned and sent them to the mirror universe, you know? That same storyline could still have happened with this ship. So that would have kept canon, you see. That would be a retcon that would have been acceptable. Because then it'd be like, oh, okay, well, this is the ship that spawned the research into transwarp drive, and then that's why we see later on a ship that actually has transwarp drive in The Search for Spock. That would be canon. That could be a retcon that people would accept because it makes sense. It makes sense that they would be experimenting and trying out this transwarp drive stuff right now. It makes sense that they would. But it doesn't make sense with this spore drive crap. That is out of left field. It is total bogus. And that is why people are mad. It's like you invent something just to make it different and change it, and it for no reason, and all you're going to do is piss off everybody. That's all you're going to do, and that's all they did, really, is piss off everybody. So that was a bad choice. Again, I would have gone with the transwarp drive route. That would have solved that problem. The ship could have had that experimental drive, and that could have been the main selling point of that ship, and it's all the problems that extended from that could have, and that storyline would have worked. That one little change is all you would have done. So you see, they've made choices here that just completely alienate the show from everything else, and that is, from the appearance side of things, what really, really irks me and a lot of people. It sets me off in the wrong way. Now, if you had... Let me put it this way. If you took this show, and like I said at the beginning, took out the Starfleet, the logos, and everything, and showed this to somebody, here's what they would see. They would see a science fiction Star Trek Discovery. They would see a science fiction show that seems like it's made by fans as a homage to Star Trek. But yet, these fans were not able to use any of the original Star Trek art assets so that they don't get copyright violations. See, that's what Star Trek Discovery seems like to me. It seems like it's a fan-made show that somebody made, but they're not allowed to use anything that resembles Star Trek so that they don't get copyright infringement. That's exactly what it seems like to me. And, I mean, I think that's the best analogy right there. I just really do. That's what it feels like. It feels like a homage to Star Trek that somebody made, but they are not allowed to use anything resembling Star Trek, save for maybe the logo, and so that way they don't get copyright infringement. That's what it seems like has happened here, and I mean, that's what you get. That's what you get. And speaking of the logo, I mean, they put that logo everywhere. The Starfleet logo is everywhere. It's on everything. I mean, in even little places you wouldn't expect it to be, there's a Starfleet logo there. They are trying to force down our throats that this is the Starfleet we know and love. This is the Federation. This is the Prime Timeline. They keep telling us this a lot. They are overcompensating in telling us this, because they say it a lot, and that's the argument you get from everybody. Well, they say it's the Prime Timeline. Okay, they say it, but I don't see it. You know, that's what I'm saying. They say it, but I'm not seeing it on screen. I'm not seeing that it is. So I have heard that, you know, from other articles and stuff, that maybe they are working towards fixing some of that, and they're like, you'll see how it fits into canon, you'll see in the future. Well, I don't want to see in the future how it fits into canon. I want to see now. It doesn't fit now into canon. So they are making a few changes in Season 2. Obviously, we've got the Captain Pike and the correct colors now for the uniforms. However, it's still not the same style of uniform. It's like they go just a little bit. They give us just a little nudge, but they don't go far enough. They're giving us the colors of the uniform, but they're not giving us the same style that Captain Pike should be wearing in this time era. You know, it's like they give us the colors, but not the style. What? Why? Why not just bring it back like it was? Why does it need to be different? I don't get that. And anyway, there's another shot of Captain Pike putting on the Discovery uniform, so we might not even see the TOS uniforms that much. And if that's true, and if they continue to wear the Discovery uniforms, that's just another down thumb for me. It's like they tried to give us just a little bit, but that's it. Then they pull it back, and they don't go all the way. They need to go all the way here, and they're not going all the way. Another change is coming for Season 2. And you guys are going to blow up on this, but check out Google, read it yourself. They are changing Spock. Spock is going to show up in Season 2. Spoilers. But he's not going to be the same Spock we know. They've stated it in the article, is bright as day. It's not really spoilers, because they've put articles out there about this. The showrunners have. They said Spock is coming, but he's not going to be the Spock that we know. He's going to be different. They've already said, fans beware, fans prepare yourself. This is not the Spock we know from the original series. This is a different Spock. They are changing Spock. And there's no reason to do it, because apparently the way that Spock is that he was always that way from the Academy and up. But now they're retconning it and saying his emotions or whatever are different between this Spock on the Enterprise and the Spock we get when Kirk joins the Enterprise, which is only a few years away. It's like 10 years difference. But yet this is somehow a much different Spock. Makes no sense that in this time period it would be a different Spock. It should be the same Spock we saw from Cage. It should be. And it's not. It's going to be a different Spock, and they're telling us up front it's going to be different. That shows me that even they know that it's not right. You know, if they're having to warn us about this, I mean, what is that? Where does that put me? What does that tell me about the show? They're already warning me that it's going to be different. Why make it different in the first place? I just don't get the need for that. Okay, so that's all about the visuals and stuff like that. Another main point of why this show is just different from everything is the storyline. The storytelling, and the I guess you could say the plot. Not the plot. I don't know. I don't even know how to put this. But let's go back to season 1, for example. It is well known and well documented that the way that they wrote the Klingons versus the Federation was supposed to be a commentary on the political situation in the United States during that time period. Both political parties, and it was supposed to be a political piece. I mean, that's how season 1 was written, and that's how these aliens like the Klingons were written. They were written to be a political piece. Now, sure, there are political episodes in Star Trek, in both TNG and TOS. There are political episodes where they touch on political topics. But the difference between that and what they've done with Discovery is that Discovery is being written to display those political differences as the main plot, instead of just having episodes that deal with it. Where we had episodes, of course, in some of the other series that deal with politicalness, Discovery was written from the standpoint of being political, you know, from its very core. And when you do it that way, you know, what really is your goal? Except to be a mouthpiece, a political mouthpiece, you know, to get your opinions about politicalness out there. And that's what it is. It's almost like propaganda in a way. You know, it was written to be propaganda instead of written to be a fun exploration Star Trek show that furthers Star Trek. You know, that makes Star Trek really good. Instead, it's written for a different purpose. And it's not written for the right reasons. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Discovery was not written for the right reasons. It wasn't like someone came along and said, hey, we got a really great idea for some science fiction here that is Star Trek, and it will push Star Trek forward and make Star Trek a great franchise. That wasn't the point of creating Discovery. The point of creating Discovery was to, one, sell you on CBS All Access, so you would have a reason to buy CBS All Access, to purchase that streaming service. Number two, to push a political agenda, pretty much. It was written for that. Instead of being written, like I said, for being just a good set of stories that they want to tell. And so its whole purpose from the beginning was flawed. It was written from a standpoint that isn't genuine. And so that just sets off the whole series on a bad run. I mean, from that, there's nowhere to go. You can't redeem yourself after that one. So it is, it's the storytelling and it's the whole basis of where this show came from that make it hard to watch for a lot of Star Trek fans. And they have broken some of Gene Roddenberry's rules on the show as well. Gene Roddenberry had a rule that he applied to the original series and to the Next Generation. And I forget exactly how the rule goes. You can look it up online. But there was some rule about on the bridge of ships, there either would or would not be some kind of this drama conflict, like the officers wouldn't have drama among each other or something. He had a rule about this. It was something about bridge officers and drama. I forget exactly how it goes. I'd have to look it up, and I don't have my phone in front of me. I forgot exactly what the rule is, but he had a specific rule. And Star Trek Discovery flat out broke that rule. They admitted it. Like, there were articles when season 1 came out of, like, you know, the number one Gene Roddenberry rule for Star Trek broken. And it was true. They broke that rule. And it's because they do not care about canon. They don't care about the franchise, so to speak. They don't care about Gene's vision anymore. It's just about getting views, getting people to watch, whatever. It's not like it was. I mean, they broke that rule, and that is what breaks Star Trek. When you start breaking from those rules that make Star Trek, then you've got just a different show. You just got a different show after that point. And so it's those things that have led to this path that Discovery has gone down. Simple as that. So when you add all those things up, you can see the problems there. And of course, there are lots of people who have made lots of videos about the problems. I'm sure there's long lists about problems and stuff. So you can find all that out there. I don't want this to be a completely negative video, though. Please understand, I am not a Star Trek Discovery hater. But I'm also not a blind fanboy. I can see the problems. You know, I'm a fan of Star Trek, but I'm a critical fan of Star Trek. I can see where there are problems. I can see that things aren't perfect. I can see how things line up or don't line up, or how they make sense or don't make sense. I get all of that. And I'm not a blind fanboy to everything. At the same time, I am a fan, and I want Star Trek to succeed. But I've got, when you see a pile of manure, you gotta admit that's a pile of manure. Now, can that pile of manure be fixed? You know, can you change it? Absolutely, there can be redemption. Absolutely. But you gotta go all the way. And what I've seen for season 2 so far is that they're not quite going all the way. They're getting a little bit closer, but they're not going all the way yet. But we'll see what happens. I'm going to watch season 2, so we'll see. So now for the really hard question. You're going to ask me, do I like Discovery? You know, do I like it? Like I said at the beginning, I don't hate it and I don't love it. I'm in a gray area. I'm in the middle, okay? I'm not a hater, I'm not a lover. I'm in the middle. There are aspects I don't like, but yet there are aspects I do like, okay? There are changes they have made that I do like for the franchise. And then there's changes, of course, they've made that I don't like for the franchise. Ultimately, I want the franchise to succeed. I want Star Trek to be popular. I want Star Trek to be talked about. I want people to watch Star Trek. I want people to play Star Trek games. I want Star Trek to exceed all this hype about Star Wars lately. I want Star Trek really to take off. It's the underdog now. It is the underdog. And I want it to succeed. I want the franchise to go on to succeed. It just seems like they don't know what that is anymore. They don't know what that direction is anymore. And they go off on a tangent and change everything. And it all started with the J.J. Abrams rebooted Star Trek. That's where it started. You know, he went off into left field with that. And now they just feel like they can keep doing that. They can just keep changing anything and make it something else. Okay, well, maybe you can, but you definitely need to say it's in an alternate universe if you're going to. Tell us that it's an alternate universe Star Trek, and I'll be okay with that. But keep forcing it down my throat that this is the prime timeline that I know and love. You're not selling me on that. You are not selling me on that. So, you're asking my opinions of what I think of the show. Like I said, it's a gray area for me. I'm in the middle. I'm going to watch it. I watched the first season. I'm going to watch the second season. So what more do you want from me? I'm already going to watch it, okay? But I want it to succeed, and I don't think it's going to. That's the problem. I really fear for its life. I fear that season 3 or on and on isn't going to happen. I fear that this will be the end, you know, and I even fear for what's coming next. Apparently, the way that they're planning this is to do several different Star Trek shows. It's very confusing. It's very confusing, and it breaks from tradition. In a huge way, it breaks from tradition. I'm not sure if that's going to be successful or not. And what really breaks from tradition is having this on CBS All Access. I mean, consider this. I'm paying for a cable TV bill already. Then there's people that have Netflix subscriptions, Amazon subscriptions, Hulu subscriptions. Now you have to have another one, CBS All Access, just to watch the show. Just to watch one show, pretty much. I don't know, man. That's not a good value. I wish it were on Prime TV like it used to be. Every other Star Trek series has been on TV, regular cable TV, whether that be CBS or UPN or whatever. It was on TV, and you can watch it on TV. Me having to pay a service just to watch it, I don't like that. Not at all. And it is a different format. And so if you're going to release all of your Star Trek shows on that CBS All Access, well, how many people really are going to pay for that, you know? You got to question that, because it's not a huge thing. It's not a huge service. If you put this on Netflix, that would probably be a bigger service, you know? But, yeah, so it's just really, I don't know. It's just a real gray area for me. It's really hard to form an opinion. This is the first series where it's been hard for me to form an outright hardcore opinion on it. I like it as a sci-fi show. As Star Trek, though, it is not the best Star Trek. I put it at the bottom for any Star Trek show right now. Discovery is at the bottom for me. For a general sci-fi show, it's just a fun sci-fi romp. But otherwise, for a Star Trek show, it's got to be at the bottom right now. Okay, so let's move on to a different topic, because those are some of my opinions. You want to hear them. This video has already gone on long enough. I apologize. Let's go on to Picard returning. Captain Picard, Patrick Stewart, returning to Star Trek. Again, one of these future series that they're working on that will be, I don't know how many episodes, but it will be a Star Trek series. Now, the good thing about it is it takes place after Nemesis. It takes place post-Nemesis. So that's good. That's the first good step. Second is Patrick Stewart is working with them on the stories. So that's the second good part to that. That gives me a little bit of hope. Because if Patrick Stewart is behind it, and if he's okay with it, and he's behind the story making, and he's behind the scripts, and he feels confident about it, then I feel more confident about it. Now, it can go one of two ways. It can be a bad series, or it can be a good series. Obviously, if it's a good series, I'll like it. If it's bad, I won't like it. The fact that Patrick Stewart is behind it, though, does help, because I do trust him. I trust his abilities. I don't know that I trust everybody else, though. Alex Kurtzman, or whatever his name is, same reason why we have what we have in Discovery, and I don't know. I don't trust their abilities at this time. It's like I've seen what they've done with Discovery, so I should be worried about the next series. I should be, based on what I've seen. And anyone would be. So that gives me pause, and I wonder and question if they have the ability to even do it justice anymore, to do Star Trek justice. So Patrick Stewart, he can of course do whatever he wants, and If it's good and it comes back, then great. I will be all in on it, and I would love seeing Picard back on screen again. But if it turns out to just not be any good, I fear it might degrade the franchise, and especially TNG, because he was obviously well known for that. So I don't want the Picard character to be jeopardized. I mean, we pulled off with a legend, pretty much, and I don't want that to be demoralized. So it's kind of like there's this trend going on right now that they think that they can recapture experiences and legends made in the past. It's like, okay, it's like this Buffy the Vampire Slayer reboot, okay? They're taking everything that was the original Buffy and rebooting it with a new Buffy. That is pointless, and it will degrade everything. You cannot see what they're trying to do is recapture the experience that the first show had. You can't do that, and there's no reason to do that. You already have that experience. What you should do is continue the experience. Make a continuation of Buffy, not a reboot of Buffy. Have Sarah Michelle Gellar show up every now and then in it, and have like a new Buffy arc, a new continuation of the show, not a reboot of it. You're not going to recapture that legend, that experience. You can't do that. Very rarely can you do that. It's just better to continue things. And the same is with Star Trek. Stop trying to recapture the past, this era in Star Trek. Stop doing prequels. Get to the sequels. Do post-Voyager, post-Nemesis shows, which they are doing with the Picard one, but that's what Discovery should have been. It should have been a post-Voyager show. Then they can change things. And it would make sense and be okay. People would be okay with that then, because then it would be in the future, and you can change things that haven't happened yet. So you can do that, but leave the past alone. Leave the legends, leave the experience of the past in the past. Leave it for nostalgia, for posterity. You can always go back and experience that and look more toward the future. So I almost in a way feel that maybe they shouldn't have Picard back, because again, it's about trying to recapture that experience of Picard, and maybe you can't do it as good the second time. Maybe the first time was it, and you cannot recapture that. And if you don't at least get to that same level, you can diminish the entire character or franchise, and you don't want to do that. So I'm worried, but I don't know. So we'll just have to see what happens. Obviously, I want to see more, of those characters and all, and more Star Trek. I just question their ability to do it well. It's almost like they need more of a break. We need new blood. That's what it is. We need new blood. We need to get these guys out there that have been involved in this and just don't have any ideas anymore. They've lost creativity. We need to get them out, and we need to stop having agendas. Stop writing the show for agendas, and just write the show to be a good show, because you want to make Star Trek, because you want to make some good episodes, because you love Star Trek. Make it for those reasons, and then we have something. So yeah, this video went on a lot longer, and I know you guys wanted my opinions and thoughts on this, and I'm not even going to do a battle anymore with the ship. I'm going to do a whole review of the ship in the future anyway, but this video's long enough, and I've been ranting here for long enough, so I'm going to leave it at that. You wanted my opinions. Those are my opinions. I'm not a hater. I'm not a lover. I can see where there's problems, and I can see where there's some good things. So I'm in the middle. And as for Picard coming back, I welcome it if it's good, but if it turns out to be bad, it could be detrimental. So we will have to wait and see on that one. Now, this video was made out of request for my opinions and all that on this. If you want to hear more about my opinions of Star Trek in general outside of Star Trek Online. I'd be glad to make more videos. If you want like a breakdown of each episode of Discovery, I could do that also. I am thinking about doing a quote reaction channel, a different channel than this one, where I could publish videos like this on a regular basis, opinion pieces about Star Trek in general outside of Star Trek Online. And then, of course, reactions to shows and reactions to even maybe Discovery in the future, you know, Season 2 and on and on and on. Let me know if you would be interested in that, and maybe I'll work on a second channel if I have the time and have some more general Star Trek stuff up there for you all. Anyway, drop a comment below and let me know what you think of Discovery for yourself. You know, do you like it? Do you not like it? Is it Star Trek to you? Is it not? Yeah, so just remember, everyone has differing opinions, and it's okay. We can all still be friends. We are all fans in Star Trek, and we can all be friends. So if you love all of my comments and statements and opinions, great. If you dislike or hate all of my comments and statements and you completely disagree with everything I've said, that's okay too. Either way, it doesn't bother me. We're all allowed to have differing opinions, and we can all get along in this great big universe. Thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for the next one.